Excellency Sir Patrick Allen, Lady Allen, Prime Minister, Ministers of Government, partners in this partnership, members of the media, other distinguished guests. The opposition affirms that it is committed to, as a responsible opposition, seeking to be a productive and constructive partner in identifying and implementing solutions to Jamaica's deep problems, while at the same time performing our constitutional role of holding the government to account and defending the Constitution of the Jamaican and the rights of the Jamaican people under the Constitution. We recognize that at Jamaica's stage of development, there are many things which require a national approach, a Jamaica approach, as opposed to a fragmented, politicized, antagonistic or adversarial approach. And we are committed to playing our part in trying to identify what those are, as has been done in this agreement, and being constructive partners in those areas of common ground. Even within those areas of common ground, there may be issues where we won't always agree on matters of detail or even matters of principle or policy, but we are committed to the idea of working together to fashion solutions in the interest of the country, rather than adopting an approach which is essentially divisive and counterproductive. I must say how much I appreciate Professor Wint's account of the role in which our leaders since independence have sought to find common ground and bring the country together. It is not often that our leaders are portrayed in that way. You know, politicians are generally the subject of a fair amount of negative commentary, and that's not to say much of that is not warranted. But if you step back and you look at our history, you'll see that there have been important eras of national life where we have collaborated in the best interests of the country. We have managed, through attentiveness to the need to be responsible and to maintain consensus around the electoral process, we've managed to largely eliminate political violence in this country. That is not to say in the heat of elections there are not occasional incidents, there are, but political violence as a phenomenon that we knew in the decades leading up to 1980 and culminating in that terrible year are behind us. Similarly, we have a Charter of Rights that required bipartisan consensus to happen because of the rules of amending our Constitution. For most things that are of significance, they require the support of both sides of the aisle. And the Charter of Rights, which gave us not a perfect, but a much more modern framework for the protection of the rights of our citizens, was another achievement through bipartisanship. Prof. Wint has mentioned ESET, the entity that was established in the lead up to the passing of the Electricity Act of 2015 and enshrined, though it has a different name, but the essence of it is enshrined in that act, which was a significant social construct that enabled us to achieve investment in large volumes of investment, to transition from being wholly dependent on oil, essentially, and derivatives from oil, to renewables and, of course, LNG, a process which is not complete, but which really started out of ESET. And then the fiscal precipice that we faced how many years ago, and the solution around that, the difficult choices that had to be made, restructuring of public debt, significant tax reform, including additional taxes, to take us from an unsustainable fiscal path to one where there is consensus around the medium-term objectives of debt sustainability. Again, and the formulation of EPOC, which was a social construct to monitor and keep the public abreast of the delivery on the commitments that were made under that agreement, is another success story. And we have CMOC, which my predecessor, Dr. Phillips, was instrumental in advocating for, and the Prime Minister obviously came on board as well. And that is an entity which needs to be revitalized and refreshed, and so that it can continue to achieve multipartisanship, not bipartisanship, but multipartisanship in the challenging issue of our time in Jamaica, which is, of course, the very, very high levels of homicide involving mainly guns, which are not made here, and getting to grips with that problem. And the opposition is committed to playing our role in fashioning national solutions. We must do so with a critical eye. Ultimately, that's our responsibility, and we are not going to renege on our responsibility to ensure that the interests of the Jamaican people are maintained, and that we bring that level of accountability through a critical eye to what's happening. But criticism is not the same thing as undermining or destabilizing genuine effort to achieve progress. We are not going to engage in that. Where we're critical, it is because we see that as a necessary and responsible position for us to take on a particular point of principle. And that will be maintained because we are in a Westminster-style democracy, and the role of the opposition is to bring that critical eye and to advocate accordingly. But I'm very happy to be at this historic occasion, the third such agreement being signed, the first for me. And I know a lot of work went into this. I want to commend Minister Green, who I understand is the minister responsible within the government for this particular process. And the fact that we're at the table, I'm sure many other people put in a lot of effort to get us this far. And it's just a renewal of a principle of how we operate as a nation, as a maturing democracy, where we take off the table of competitive political activity things which can be better solved for a better national outcome through consensus, and we build that consensus. And that requires authentic, honest, and genuine and respectful dialogue. It won't work if it's just based on posturing or empty words, water in your mouth while you talk, as I would say. It must be a real thing as to how we engage with each other, accepting and protecting that principle of trying to find common ground and move the country forward accordingly. It's my pleasure to be here with you today and to put my signature on the document on behalf of the opposition. Let us move forward together and try and move beyond some of our very deep problems where we can, through a spirit of consensus, dialogue, mutual understanding, all in the best interests of Jamaica, land we love.